The morning sun made long shadows across the presidential palace in Ouagadougou. President Ibrahim Traoré was doing his usual morning routine. At 6 a.m. sharp, dressed in his simple army uniform, he sat in the garden. He was looking over security, reports from the night before. The sweet smell of roses filled the air, but today felt different. It felt heavier, like a warning. The palace guards watched carefully, looking all around. Everything seemed normal until something impossible happened. From a part of the compound that should have been impossible to get into, a dusty brown dog appeared out of nowhere. The dog had no collar or anything to show who it belonged to. Its eyes looked very old and wise, which was strange for such a thin, tired dog. Unlike a normal stray dog looking for food, this dog walked with a clear purpose. It ignored the surprised guards who tried to stop it. "Stop right there," shouted Guard Mama, putting his hand on his gun. But the dog didn't listen to anyone. It walked past him confidently, like it belonged there and had something important to do. 2 more guards tried to block its way, but the dog just changed direction. It walked straight towards the path that led to President Traoré's private garden. This was the exact path the president took every morning at 7 a.m. for his quiet walk. Only his closest security knew about this routine. Chief of Staff Karim saw the commotion from his office window. "Strange," he mumbled, reaching for his radio. "Security. There's an unknown animal in the compound. How did it get in?" By the time more guards arrived, the dog had reached its goal. Right where President Traoré usually started his morning walk, the dog stopped. It sat down very neatly and stared at the ground with strong focus. President Traoré, curious about the unusual activity, walked closer, even though his guards told him not to. "Sir, it's just a stray animal," one guard insisted, but the president's army instincts told him otherwise. "Where did it come from?" he asked, looking at the dog with more and more interest. "Unknown, sir. No one saw it come in. No gate records, no alarms. It's like it just appeared." The president moved closer, and the dog looked up at him for a moment. In that moment, something passed between them. Maybe they understood each other. The dog's dark brown eyes showed no fear, only a calm determination that reminded Traoré of soldiers before a fight. "What are you looking at?" the president asked out loud, following the dog's steady stare to the seemingly normal patch of ground. Without warning, the dog stood up. It took 3 careful steps forward and started sniffing the ground very closely. Then it happened. A low, strong growl, the first sound the dog had made since it mysteriously arrived. President Traoré's army training took over. Years of fighting had taught him to trust his gut feeling, and right now, every feeling screamed, "Danger! Dig there," he ordered, pointing to the exact spot the dog had been interested in. "Sir?" the guard questioned, unsure. "I said dig immediately." A gardener came with tools and started digging. 3 inches down, then 6, then 10. At exactly 10 inches, his shovel hit something metal. The man's face went pale as he carefully moved more dirt away. It showed a square metal box with a small antenna sticking out. "Bomb!" Someone screamed. Everyone back. The palace became a scene of controlled panic. Bomb experts were called right away. Within minutes, their worst fears were true. The device was complex, put there by professionals, and made to explode with a remote signal. It had been placed perfectly along the president's daily walking path. As the bomb squad worked to disarm the device, President Traoré stood still, his hands behind his back, thinking about what this meant. Someone had gotten into the most secure place in Burkina Faso. Someone who knew his daily routine had put a bomb there to kill him. But most worrying of all, if this mysterious dog hadn't shown up, he would have walked right over the bomb in less than 15 minutes. The dog, its job seemingly done, had moved away from the digging site. It now rested quietly near the kitchen wall. It looked tired, like a soldier who had finished an important mission and could finally rest. "Bring water and food for the animal," the president ordered. When a palace worker brought food and water, the dog drank a little but didn't eat the food. It was as if eating wasn't as important as its mission. As the sun got higher and the palace was busy with emergency plans, President Traoré kept looking at the resting dog. When he was a child in his village, his father had told him stories about animals that were messengers from ancestors, creatures that appeared when people needed help or protection. Could this be one of them? The logical part of his mind dismissed these thoughts, but the proof was clear. This was no ordinary animal, and this was no ordinary day. Finding the first bomb turned the presidential palace into a very secure fortress. Every staff member was questioned deeply, every camera angle was checked carefully, and every entrance was sealed tighter than a vault. Yet, even with strong proof of a threat from inside, one mystery remained: the dog. President Traoré had ordered a full check of the animal. The vet's report was both confusing and comforting. The dog showed no signs of sickness, no tracking devices, no proof of training or ownership. It seemed to be a street dog that had somehow decided to protect the president. The animal is thin but healthy, the vet reported. No microchip, no shot records, no collar marks. It's been living on its own for a long time, but its behavior is unusual. It's not acting like a typical stray. Indeed, the dog's behavior was far from typical. While palace staff worked around it, the animal stayed alert but calm. It watched everything with smart eyes that seemed to remember everyone's movements and intentions. Some guards had started saluting it, half as a joke, but with real respect. Young guard, Musa, said what many were thinking. That dog saw what none of us could see. That's not normal animal behavior. His friend nodded seriously. Maybe it's not really a dog at all. The bomb analysis showed scary details: military-grade explosives, complex timing devices, and professional installation methods pointed to either foreign spies or highly trained local rebels. Commander Zachary told the president what they found. "This wasn't done by amateurs, sir. Whoever put this device here knew your daily routine very well and could get into restricted palace areas. We're looking at either a high-level traitor or foreign agents with help from inside." President Traoré walked to his office window where he could see the dog resting peacefully in the garden. And if our guardian hadn't appeared, the silence that followed answered his question better than words. That afternoon, the strange thing happened again. While bomb experts continued to search the palace grounds carefully, the dog suddenly got up from its resting place. It walked with purpose towards the old storage building, a place that hadn't been used in months and wasn't part of any security patrol route. The dog stopped halfway to the building. It turned to look directly at the closest guard and barked twice. It was only the second time anyone had heard it make a sound, and the urgency in its voice was clear. "What's in that building?" an officer asked. "Old carpentry tools, unused furniture. It's been locked for months. Open it." The rusty lock broke with bolt cutters, and the door swung open with a creak. The smell that came out was wrong. Not the dusty smell of an old building, but something more dangerous. Behind wooden shelves, hidden under dried grass and an old blanket, they found it. A second bomb, just like the first. This discovery shocked the security team. This wasn't just one attempt to kill someone. It was a planned attack. Many bombs, many hiding spots, many chances to murder. The meaning was huge. "If that dog hadn't led us here," the security commander said quietly, "we would never have found this. The building isn't on our search map." President Traoré arrived as the second bomb was being carefully removed. He knelt beside the dog, which had gone back to its calm watch near the storage building entrance. "Who sent you?" he whispered. The dog blinked slowly and closed its eyes, as if the question itself was an answer. That evening, as palace security worked all night to gather proof and question suspects, a darker plot started to appear. In a dimly lit house outside Ouagadougou, a group of well-dressed men sat around a table. Their faces showed anger and worry. "This dog is ruining everything," one of them growled, hitting his fist on the wooden table. An older man with a scarred jaw leaned forward. "2 bombs, 2 failures. Our plan is messed up." "It's not just a dog," a third plotter insisted. "It's stopping our plans. As long as that animal is alive, we'll never win." These were not street criminals or foreign spies. They were men with power and access. Men who had promised to protect the very person they now wanted to kill. Their plan was big: get rid of President Traoré, make the government unstable, and take control with help from foreign countries. But they hadn't planned for a 4-legged protector with amazing instincts. "We need to get rid of the dog," the scarred man said. "Poison it, shoot it, whatever it takes. That animal is the only thing stopping us from winning." The next morning brought new problems. 2 men entered the palace pretending to be sanitation workers. They pushed carts full of trash cans. Hidden among the trash was a piece of fresh goat meat, juicy and smelling good, and filled with enough poison to kill many dogs. They put the deadly bait near the mango tree where the dog usually rested. Then they waited, torched their trap work. Minutes passed. The dog walked up to the meat, sniffed it carefully, and then walked away without taking a bite. The would-be killers watched in disbelief as their perfect plan failed. What kind of animal could smell poison just by sniffing? What power was protecting this mysterious guardian? Their failure started a more dangerous phase. If the dog couldn't be killed quietly, they would have to use other ways. The plotters started planning a more direct approach, one that would test not only the dog's protective instincts, but also how much one animal could do against human evil. As night fell over the palace, the dog kept its silent watch. It didn't know it had become the target of a secret plan that reached the highest levels of government. The fight for President Traoré's life was far from over, and things were about to get much more serious. The failed poisoning attempt had worried the plotters more than they wanted to admit. How could a street dog have such sharp instincts? How could it sense danger that trained security people missed? These questions bothered the men who had sworn to kill both the president and his mysterious protector. Later that same day, more men arrived at the palace. This time they pretended to be journalists. They had fake press passes and professional cameras. They said they wanted to interview someone about the recent bomb attempt. Their real job was to look around, to see if the dog was still alive, and to get information for their next attack. Palace security, still very alert, let them into a small part of the compound. As they walked through the allowed area, with fake smiles and practiced questions, one of them saw their target. "There it is," he whispered to his partner, "still alive." But something was different this time. The dog had noticed them the moment they entered the compound. It got up from its resting place and stared at them. Its stare seemed to see through their disguises and into their very being. Its usually calm, dark eyes had turned a strange red color. It wasn't the sun reflecting, but something much more disturbing. The main fake reporter felt his confidence disappear. "Did you see that before?" he asked his friend. Before the other man could answer, the dog started to bark. It wasn't the normal bark of a guard dog, but something wild and terrifying that seemed to come from another world. The sound made the hair on their necks stand up and sent shivers down their backs. Panic took over them. "We need to leave now," one of them gasped. They ran to their van and sped away from the palace. They left behind their fake interview and any pretense of being journalists. Their fear was so complete that they didn't talk to each other as they drove through the narrow roads away from the capital. Their fear turned out to be true. On a winding road near the old railway line, their vehicle suddenly went out of control. A tire burst without warning, sending the van crashing into an electrical pole before flipping into a nearby ditch. None of the 5 plotters inside survived the crash. The news of the accident spread quickly through Ouagadougou, but few connected it to the mysterious dog at the presidential palace. President Traoré, however, recognized some of the names of the dead. They were men he had seen before, men who were part of political groups, men who had access to information they shouldn't have had. The next morning brought a new challenge for the palace's guardian. President Traoré was supposed to travel to Bobo-Dioulasso, Burkina Faso's second-largest city. He had a very important meeting with young leaders and village elders. Even with the highest security, special vehicles, carefully chosen staff, and helicopter watch, the president made a surprising decision. "The dog travels with us," he announced. His security team didn't argue. A comfortable bed was made in a special part of the main security truck. The animal got in without fighting, as if it understood how important the trip was. The group of vehicles left at dawn, following secret routes. Yet, as they got close to a quiet road near a narrow bridge, the dog's behavior changed a lot. It stood up in the truck and started barking very loudly. It scratched at the inside walls as if trying to escape or warn of immediate danger. The driver immediately called the main vehicle. "Sir, the dog is very upset. Something's wrong." President Traoré ordered the vehicles to stop right away. The security team spread out with detection tools and drones. They searched the area thoroughly. Within 10 minutes, they found something that proved their trust in their 4-legged guardian. A third bomb, hidden in a hollow log under the bridge they were about to cross. This bomb was bigger than the first 2. It was made to destroy the entire group of vehicles in a huge explosion. The timing would have been perfect. The moment the president's vehicles drove over the bridge, exploding the bomb would have killed not just the president, but his entire security team. 3 bombs, 3 attempts to kill him, 1 animal that had stopped them all. As the bomb disposal team worked to disarm the device, President Traoré sat in his secure vehicle. He thought about how big this situation was. Someone wasn't just trying to kill him. They were planning a full attack to make the whole government unstable. The money, planning, and inside information needed for this suggested a secret plot at the highest levels. When the vehicles finally reached Bobo Dioulasso, the people cheered for their president. They didn't know how close they had come to a national disaster. But behind every handshake and photo, President Traoré felt the heavy truth. His enemies weren't just foreign spies or common criminals. They were people he knew, people he trusted, people who sat in government meetings and wore the uniform of public service. That evening, as he returned safely to Ouagadougou, his intelligence chief called with early findings from their investigation. Financial records, secret messages, and surveillance videos from the past months were starting to show a picture of betrayal that went to the heart of his government. "Sir," the intelligence chief reported, "we're no longer fighting normal enemies. There are forces working against you from inside our own government, but there are also forces protecting you that our technology can't find or explain." President Traoré looked out at the palace garden where the dog had gone back to its careful watch. "I know," he replied softly, "and I think this is far from over." The president didn't know it, but his suspicions were absolutely right. The failed attempts to kill him had only made the remaining plotters more determined. They were getting ready, planning new ways, and preparing for a final fight, one that would test how evil humans could be and how strong supernatural protection was. The mysterious dog settled into its night watch. Its eyes scanned the darkness for dangers that only it seemed to be able to find. The fight for Burkina Faso's future was entering its most dangerous part. The result would depend on powers that people couldn't understand. The failed attempts to kill him had made President Traoré's intelligence services dig deeper than ever before. Money transactions, secret communications, and surveillance videos from past months were checked with great detail. What they found broke the trust within the government itself. Commander Zachary came into the president's office carrying files that would change everything. "Mr. President," he said, putting photos and papers on the desk, "we've found where the threat is coming from. The enemies aren't hiding in foreign capitals or criminal groups. They sit next to you in cabinet meetings." 5 names were on the secret list. 2 were high-ranking officials in the transport department who knew the president's travel plans. 1 was a national security advisor who attended secret meetings. The last 2 were former army commanders, men President Traoré had personally trusted and promoted. These weren't just criminals looking for a chance or extreme thinkers. They were traitors who had sold their country's leaders to foreign interests for power and money. Their plan was careful: kill President Traoré before Independence Day, make the government unstable during the chaos, and take control with help from outside forces who wanted Burkina Faso's natural resources. President Traoré looked at each name carefully. He felt the pain of betrayal in his chest. These men had promised to protect the nation they were now trying to destroy. "Arrest all of them," he said calmly and firmly. Today, by evening, the job was done. The 5 plotters were arrested at the same time. One from a fancy golf club, another caught trying to run away through the airport in disguise. The rest were taken from their homes and offices. The arrests were done quietly, without public show. This let the proof speak for itself instead of creating a spectacle. During questioning, the security advisor was the first to break. Faced with strong proof of his involvement, he confessed with tears of fear. "Yes, we planned it all," he cried. "We had foreign support, inside information, professional help. We thought we had thought of everything." "What stopped you?" the questioner pressed. "That cursed dog," the man cried. "It saw through everything. It found every bomb, showed every plan. We tried to kill it, but even that failed. It's not natural that animal destroyed us." The confession showed the full extent of the secret plan. Foreign agents had promised a lot of money and political help. In return, they wanted access to Burkina Faso's valuable minerals and important location. The local plotters had been promised high positions in a new government, one that would serve outside interests instead of the people of Burkina Faso. But they hadn't expected a mysterious guardian, one that could find bombs with amazing accuracy, survive poisoning attempts, and somehow tell humans about danger if they were willing to listen. As President Traoré read the questioning reports late that night, he realized the dog had disappeared as mysteriously as it had arrived. A thorough search of the palace grounds found no sign of the animal. Security cameras showed no exit. Guards reported no sightings, and the main gates had been watched constantly. The palace became unusually quiet. Staff members who had gotten used to the dog being there found themselves looking at its usual resting spots. They expected to see the familiar brown shape, keeping its careful watch, but it was gone. It left behind only questions and a deep feeling of loss. President Traoré went back to his private rooms after the longest day of his presidency. As he took off his jacket and got ready to rest, something caught his eye. A small folded piece of paper on his desk that hadn't been there before. With shaking hands, he opened the note. The handwriting was neat and clear. The message was short but powerful. Be careful, but don't be afraid. I am on your side. I will be watching and I will be back when needed. There was no signature, no hint of where it came from. Just those words that seemed to carry the weight of old promises and endless protection. President Ibrahim Traoré sat in the quiet of his secure room. He held the mysterious note and thought about what had happened in the past week. A secret plan that could have destroyed his government and thrown Burkina Faso into chaos had been stopped by a creature that couldn't be explained by logic. He thought of his father's stories from childhood. Tales of animal messengers sent by ancestors to guide and protect people during dangerous times. He had thought these stories were just old tales, but recent events had made him question what was possible. Getting up from his chair, he walked to the window overlooking the palace garden. The spot where the dog had kept watch was empty now, but somehow it didn't feel empty. It felt like something was expected, as if something was waiting, in the shadows, ready to appear when help was needed. "Thank you," he whispered into the darkness. "Wherever you are, whatever you are, thank you." The wind rustled through the garden trees. It carried a faint sound that might have been a dog's soft bark, or just the movement of leaves. President Traoré smiled for the first time in days. He understood that some protections were beyond human understanding. Burkina Faso was safe, not just from the immediate secret plan, but from forces that wanted to use and control it. The mysterious guardian dog had finished its mission, but its message was clear. They would stay alert, protection would remain, and when danger threatened, again, help would appear in ways that enemies couldn't guess or defeat. The president closed the curtains and got ready for sleep. He carried with him the knowledge that his country was watched over by powers stronger than armies, more reliable than technology, and lasting longer than human ambition. The mystery of the guardian dog would never be fully solved, but its impact would be remembered for generations. A reminder that sometimes protection comes from the most unexpected places. In the quiet gardens of the presidential palace, a gentle breeze moved the leaves, and for just a moment, the shadow of a dog seemed to move across the moonlit ground before disappearing into the endless watch of the night.